Mass losses for Russia on the front lines are pushing the Kremlin towards forced mobilization. Ukrainian drones have been destroying Russian warehouses on Russian territory all weekend. The newest nuclear missile exploded during testing. I'm Maria Drutska, and we will also speak about the latest Ukraine's request of 2 additional types of fighter jets from Western countries. The UK and the US are considering granting Ukraine a private permission to use long-range missiles, and other news. Russia is experiencing significant losses on the battlefield in Ukraine, and the number of volunteers is not enough to meet the needs, leaving the Kremlin faced with the dilemma of whether to initiate another forced mobilization. According to the Wall Street Journal, this decision could have political consequences for Russian President Vladimir Putin. Well, officials from the Russian Ministry of Defense are pressuring the dictator to announce a new wave of mobilization for the war of attrition against Ukraine. It is noted that in the months leading up to the inauguration, which was in May this year, I remind you, Putin met with representatives from the Russian Ministry of Defense who insisted on conducting a new wave of mobilization to attract additional troops and compensate for Russia's losses on the battlefield in Ukraine. Putin rejected this idea, stating that he wants to use only those who voluntarily sign military contracts. According to 3 individuals familiar with the negotiations, the invasion of Ukraine into Russia is further depleting the Russian army, highlighting chronic issues and forcing the country's military leadership to consider mobilization once again. The Wall Street Journal reports that Moscow has yet to carry out a large-scale counteroffensive in Kursk to push Ukrainian forces back across the border. A source within the Russian government stated that mobilization is inevitable as the existing forces are inefficient to achieve the initial war objectives. The Wall Street Journal notes that Russia has so far managed to maintain troop numbers through the recruitment of contract soldiers. In mid-July, the Russian Ministry of Defense announced that approximately 190,000 people had joined the Russian army since the beginning of the year, and according to Russian and Western estimates, Moscow is recruiting about 1,000 people daily from across the whole country. As reported by Voice of America, the highest number of volunteers have died near Avdiivka, which the Russians have been trying to capture since October last year, when, according to Ukrainian military sources, Russian soldiers walked over the bodies of their comrades. However, because Avdiivka was ultimately taken using this tactic, Putin considers it a success that should be continued and developed, according to The Economist. Russia's large population and widespread poverty provide Putin with ample opportunities for recruiting potential recruits. At the current rate of losses, the Kremlin believes that there will be enough new recruits until the end of 2025, concluded The Economist. In July, Putin attempted to increase troop numbers by doubling the one-time payment for new recruits to 400,000 rubles, or approximately $4,300, which is a significant amount in many parts of Russia. According to Western officials, about 8% of the Russian budget is currently allocated to maintaining military personnel. Well, before I continue, I want to thank all of you who send coffees on Buy Me a Coffee and become patrons to this channel. Please do so if you want more videos on the channel. You can also help this channel by subscribing to it and like this video, as it will definitely help Ukrainian content to be seen by more people. I suggest you also subscribe to my X page, where I post regular updates about the situation in Ukraine, and to my Instagram, where I show the daily life in Ukraine. The Kremlin has been unable to fully suppress local protests organized by the wives of mobilized Russian soldiers. Russian authorities are wary of announcing a new mobilization, fearing it would provoke a strong negative reaction among the population. This is highlighted in a report by the Institute of the Study of War. The report states that the Kremlin has failed to completely quell local protests initiated by the wives of Russian mobilized soldiers since the partial mobilization was announced on September 21, 2022. On the anniversary of this announcement, women protested in front of the Russian Ministry of Defense headquarters, demanding a meeting with Defense Minister Andriy Belousov. However, the minister did not appear, and the protest was disrupted by a group of provocators who, according to the publication, mobilization news may have been sent by the Ministry of Defense itself. According to ISW assessment, Russian authorities do not plan a new partial or general mobilization due to concerns about the social reaction to forced conscription. Russian leaders also fear that mobilization could disrupt the fragile balance they have tried to achieve in public perception of the war. Russian media and state propaganda aim to portray the war as a heroic but distant conflict. They want Russians to feel they can continue to enjoy a normal life alongside rising incomes and greater wealth contributions as a result of the war. In the night of September 21, the Ukrainian Defense Forces struck two more Russian arsenals. The General Staff reported that one of the arsenals was receiving another echelon delivering at least 2,000 tons of ammunition, including from North Korea. This occurred at Tikhoretsk, Krasnodar Krai, at the 23rd Arsenal of the main artillery directorate of the Russian Ministry of Defense in Tver region, near the settlement of Oktyabrsk. It is noted that Tikhoretsk is among the top 3 largest ammunition storage bases of the occupiers and is a key to logistic systems of the Russian military. Additionally, local authorities noted that the fire at the site occurred due to the fall of drone debris in an area where explosive materials are located. The governor of Krasnodar Krai reported that the fire spread to explosive items, causing their detonation. Do you understand? The debris fell. And what did you think? That their massive warehouses were destroyed by Ukrainian drones? Of course not. An ammunition depot was also destroyed in Tver Oblast in Russia. Some of the strategic storage facilities are located above the ground, while others are in underground bunkers. As reported by the Russian Telegram channel Kremlin Tobacco Box, Кремлевская табакерка, their sources say a significant number of artillery shells have been lost. Preliminary estimates indicate that at least 3,000 aerial bombs, referring to FOBs and COBs, have been lost. An investigation has begun into which idiot orders them to be stored outdoors, as it said. The detonation was so intense that it also affected underground storage facilities. You can watch more interesting videos of the burning depots on my X Twitter page, so follow me for daily updates on the most interesting news. Yesterday, tests of the Russian intercontinental ballistic missile Sarmat ended in failure, causing a fire in the launch pad, according to open-source intelligence analysis. Satellite images captured a large crater likely formed by the missile's fall or detonation in its liquid-fueled engine. This marks the fourth failed attempt to test these missiles. The first and only successful test of the Sarmat took place on April 20, 2022. With there is no analogy in the world nuclear weapons, it is the same story as always. They exist only in Putin's rhetoric. As the Moscow Times reports, last fall, Russian President Vladimir Putin noted that the Sarmat missile system designed to replace the intercontinental ballistic missiles Voyevoda, known as Saturn in NATO classification, has yet to enter serial production and has not been delivered to the troops. The Sarmat missile development began in 2013 and Putin promised it would be in service by 2020. Ukraine has requested 2 additional types of fighter jets from Western countries. Defense Minister Rustem Umerov stated that Kiev is negotiating with Western nations regarding the supply of Gripen and Eurofighter jets. We already have commitment from our partners for F-16s and Mirage 2000s. Discussions are ongoing for Gripen and Eurofighter Typhoon jets. Soon we will have results to announce, he told the Rada TV channel. He added that Ukraine needs a significant number of aircraft to achieve air superiority. The military commands of Finland and Estonia plan to develop a strategy to prohibit the actions of the Russian fleet in the Baltic Sea in case of an extreme situation, stated Major General Andrus Merilo, commander of the Estonian Defense Forces, in the interview with Helsinki Sanomat. According to him, maritime defense is an area where Finland and Estonia will continue to enhance their cooperation. The parties are ready to develop more concrete plans to completely restrict the enemy's action in the Baltic Sea if necessary. Merilo also noted that this is quite feasible from a military standpoint. When asked under what circumstances the Gulf of Finland could be closed to Russia, he explained that it would depend on the security situation. UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy calls for resolve amid negotiations regarding Storm Shadow missiles. According to The Guardian, Lammy stated that the issues surrounding the war in Ukraine will become deeper and harsher, especially as the conflict spreads into late 2025 and 2026. So this is a critical time for courage, patience, as well as resilience on behalf of the allies supporting Ukraine, he added. These comments seem directed at the cautious White House, which has expressed concerns about the risk of using these missiles on Russian territory. The UK and the US are considering granting Ukraine a private permit to use long-range Storm Shadow missiles for strikes deep within Russia, according to the Times. An official decision was expected to be made following the visit of American and British diplomats to Ukraine last week. However, the decision was so complicated that 2 statements were prepared for the press conference, one regarding permission and another about reviewing the request. One source noted that the US and the UK want to show the NATO is united and to avoid the impression that these 2 countries dominate decision making. Another source of the publication emphasized that the US administration wants to act quickly due to the approaching presidential elections. The final decision is expected to be made during the UN General Assembly next week. However, the White House is concerned that this step could pose a problem for Kamala Harris in her campaign. The readiness for an agreement is already being demonstrated by the US authorities and the foreign ministers of the UK, France, Germany, and Italy. Diplomatic sources explain that NATO wants to demonstrate unity and coordination in its actions to avoid the impression of dominance by the UK and the US. Let me know, guys, what do you think about this one? And that's it for today. I want to thank all of you for supporting Ukraine, watching Ukrainian content. Please like this video, and if you really like it, and you want more videos like this, you can support the channel's development on Patreon or buy me a coffee. See you soon, and Slava Ukraini!